The whole system's built in a way to progress you further forward, and the infrastructure that's built around it is built in a way where it's easy for you to adapt, very flexible, easy to add things into the system, as well as integrate other systems together if needed later. Like all the different templates that we have available on the Tana store, anything new that comes out, you want the ability to easily integrate those into a format. Something that I set out to do with Focus Pro, but this is now taking it to another level. We're going to start by kind of like walking through like a bit of a demonstration on the whole thing. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit record, and we'll come back to this a little bit later. But for now, it's just going to kind of run through the background and record the first steps of this, and we'll see the results of that later on. So now we're going to go through the workflows that we've kind of set out. So business core, the business core template in itself is giving you everything that you need as a solopreneur, creator, general working for yourself. It's not something that's supposed to replace things like your CRM. It's not supposed to replace things like dedicated softwares and tools that Tana might not necessarily be in that kind of realm for. But what it is meant to do is give you a workflow and a pipeline and an ability to connect out to those tools if you need to. So for now, we've got a simple sales pipeline, which you can simply take through. It's got all the relevant information required that you would need. And we've also got like communication activity that we can log throughout this entire deal. So Billy Bob Thornton, I'm going to have a quick phone call conversation with him, but I'm going to connect to him via WhatsApp, and I'm going to log the call. And it adds this all down here. And what it's also done is it's opened up my WhatsApp. So these are little things that you can use to connect to the outside world. And then you can also, if we weren't transcribing right now, you can hit transcribe and it will start going through a transcription to log the phone call that you got going on. There's also ways to link this through to your email. So I can email the contact. And what that actually does is, showing you again, it basically opens up your email browser with the contact information, so you can just start typing straight away and get started on creating emails. So this is a way for you to connect to your outside applications, as well as keep a log of everything inside Tana, which you can then use later to elevate your projects or enforce the decisions that you're going to make in your projects. From this point, we can go back to the workflows. And we'll tick off Billy Bob and we'll go into the focus. Now, what Nick and I have done for the demonstration purposes of this evening, but also we've been using this system for the last few weeks to build this course out, talk about the marketing materials for it, and log all of our conversations that we've been having for the last couple of weeks. So this has effectively got all the benefits of Focus Pro and GigaBrain combined, in the sense of we can go through and see all of those highlights that have been generated and all these things. But I'll come back to that in a little bit. For now, I just want to give you a little bit more of a layer and overland. The workflows are effectively a way to check through all your different items by status, so you can see where anything's at, when it needs to be done, and what's up next, etc., etc. These items are meant to enable you to plan and see things that are relevant for when, not necessarily where. We are also going to introduce a client portal, but we're doing a couple of updates at the moment because Tana's just released those Publish 2.0, the new Publish systems that we've got. So we're currently just doing some updates on that. And I'm going to jump straight into talking about the content, but in order to do that, I'm actually going to go to the system that I've got. Not that it's a different system, it's just populated with actual, like, all of my, I'll show you now. So we've got all the different content groups that we're using to formulate, and this is what we're going to show through in the in the live demo in a little bit. But the content groups are effectively enforcing what all the content creates over here. What that looks like through a system that is populated is we have an entire content plan based on the calendar. We've got all the videos that have been associated to that. We can even click into some of these items and see all the goals, all the angles, all the hooks, the thumbnail images that have been associated to them all, and everything else that's been used to enforce the workflow process on this, plus all of the AI conversations that we've had before as well. So we're able to quickly go through and see where we left off. I'm going into too much detail for this moment because we wanted to give a bit more of a live demo on that afterwards. But this is what the workflows are doing. It enables you to have a satellite view of everything and then zoom into those relative areas when and as and when you need to. For that, I'm going to hand over to Nick for the moment before I go into gory details of everything else.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and quick note, if anyone has questions at any time, feel free to either drop them in the chat or raise your hand or just blurt them out. It's fine either way. So yeah, bringing things back up to kind of a high level, one of our goals, our primary goals, is to ensure that everything that you do benefits everything else that you're doing in your workspace. So that whenever you're doing something, you get other positive benefits just by the fact that you're doing them anyway. And we'll show how that's kind of working in the demo coming up. But you get these compounding benefits as a side effect, because whenever you're doing anything, you end up producing other net positive results without you even realizing it. And we're helping you capture those and funnel them into the most productive ways possible for you in your systems. Let's see here. Okay, so in two of the ways that we're doing this, especially when it comes to AI, is one thing that we're calling dynamic prompting. And that means the prompts that are sent to the AI, whether it's for highlight generation or you're having a conversation, a chat with your projects, or you're writing content, those prompts involve dynamic lists, so search nodes mostly, but information that is updating in real time based on what kind of projects are active, not active, on what kinds of lists you're collecting of information and data that is important to you, what kind of personal theories and concepts, and what kind of additions you're making to your business model. Whatever makes sense for your environment, the AI can always be up to date and only focusing on the things that need to be focused on for any particular actions because of those dynamic prompts. The next thing that we're doing is organic context engineering. If you're not familiar with the term, context engineering is just determining what you're sending to the AI and what information related to the primary information that the AI is also getting access to. And there's a lot of ways that can go wrong. You can be not sending enough. You can not have clear enough instructions. You can overwhelm the AI with either overall just too much information, or especially it tends to be kind of dirty. There's a lot of noise hiding the signal. And so one of the things that we're doing is giving you the cleanest signal that you can get for any particular task. And we're giving you that without you needing to prompt engineer or context engineer. And you don't have to put a whole lot of thought into it. We've put thought into what kind of information and what kind of directions need to go with any particular action at each stage in the business journey and the content creation journey. And all of that is part of human agent experience design. That's a term that I've coined. And I'm a product or UX designer by trade. And I'm used to thinking of humans in particular for designing things. And what is the experience like for people? But you have to also think about increasingly the AI experience, the agentic experience. What do they need? How are they going to have the best possible experience? Which just means, what is going to make things the most easily understandable for them, and what is going to get them from the point A to the point B that you want them to get to the quickest and most easily and with the least cognitive load for the AI. Because even though AI is super intelligent and has lots of just raw capabilities that humans don't in being able to brute force things, every action still takes a certain amount it has a certain amount of friction, takes a certain amount of energy and a certain amount of time. And if you can chop off things at each of those levels, then you can improve performance, especially greatly over time, because things build off of other things that build off of those side effects. Okay. And then now with that, unless there are any questions, I'll hand it off back to Simon again for some more demonstration.
So, oh, one sec. Bit of a clear with the throat. Okay, so back onto where we were at before, what that looks like with this dynamic prompting and all those compounding benefits that Nick was just talking about, it is on visual display for you in the views. This was something that Nick and I sort of discovered kind of coincidentally when we merged GigaBrain and Focus Pro together, was that the viewpoints that we were getting and the search queries that were putting information in were actually creating dynamic prompts because they were feeding dynamic information into the AI and into the assistant and into the chats, which allowed you to also effectively see what was being loaded into the conversation, which you don't really get the opportunity to do in other softwares. Claude and ChatGPT, you can load a bunch of files and things like that in, but you can't see what the prompt, what the AI is getting to a certain extent unless you're going up to dev mode. But the point is that you have a instant feedback right now without having to be a developer. So the traditional things that have been going on in Focus Pro is that you have the smart pad and you have the ability to keep things organized and clear things out of sight and out of mind. And you've got all the standard things that you had here before with your actions and events and materials. And if you remember, we started a transcription at the beginning of this. So to kind of give you a full workflow of what this actually would look like now is we're going to stop this transcription. And straight off that, I'll let it just do its little thing, and then we'll generate some highlights, which is where GigaBrain and Casper are going to effectively summarize all the information that we need out there for us and make all the relevant links to our project as well. So give it a moment.
While we're waiting for Casper to do his job, I'll talk a little bit more and say that you're seeing a visual representation here of part of the ways that we're turning your workspace into a system of flywheels. And what I mean by that is this is turning outputs from certain things into the inputs of other things. And this allows, what was that?
Just generating the highlights now.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so that allows us to turn a meeting that we were going to have anyway into something that has a transcript that is readable and that we can chat with the AI with, but also the highlights are generated and those are linked across the workspace wherever they're most relevant. So it's not just for this meeting or for this project that the most important parts of this meeting are going to be linked to. It's anything in my workspace that has a meaningful connection to what was said in that meeting now has that connection. And you'll see the power of that in the next steps as we move into the content creation that originates and has the seeds of inspiration from your work itself. Go ahead, Simon.
So from that, I can effectively go straight ahead and create a content group from the project. Now, there'll be different areas within the system that you can add this, but we'll show you how that flexibility works in a moment. But for now, we've attached it to the project and we're going to hit this. So it sets up a new content group, all linked into the system. And we're going to go into that and we can see that everything's all set up. This is where Hagrid really comes into play. But what I'm actually going to do just for the purpose of this demonstration, so it's got a little bit less references, I'm going to use the live Q&A meeting we've just kind of developed, and then we've got a bit of a smaller pool of data to work with, just so it doesn't get a little bit too overloaded. But what this effectively was doing was pulling in all the source material that we've had in the highlights and in the capture, and it's poured it all into this content view based on what's in this source material box. So we can go straight in, zoom into the content group. And that's the GigBrain elements that we were just doing. Just skip to the bunch of stuff. Okay, so we're over here. So what we're going to now next look at is I'm just going to make sure that this has got the right information. And we're going to straight away just chat with Hagrid. And he's going to identify and help us work out and plan the goal, the angle, and the hook to then start generating content to work out what the direction is first. So straight off, we'll chat with him. He's going to load up all of this. And this is part of this dynamic prompting that we're discussing here. Because I wonder why my, it's pulling everything in. One memento. Okay. Technical difficulties on the load, but we're good. Okay, so all I did there was I just deleted the defaults and it just refreshed itself back in again. So if you ever have a problem with any search queries, you can always just delete them from the templates and they repopulate themselves back in again. What I've done is start the chat with Hagrid, and he's now got a focus just on these little elements here. So he's actually pulling in information from the conversation that Nick and I were speaking about all originally. But I want him to really just focus on this. He's already got that information. Which single goal is top priority? Nick? I was more thinking I was hoping it would just pull in this information and not everything, but okay.
So let's ask Hagrid what he thinks a good goal would be.
So the intention here is that you're having a conversation back and forth prompting with the AI itself. Hagrid's geared up in a way where he wants to help you get your result, but he's not going to do the whole legwork for you. He is going to ask you questions. He's going to have a back and forth, but the majority of the information that he's provided with to start off with takes you 90% of the way there. The idea is that all this information that you're providing to him is a focused result, almost known as what other people are calling a signal, but you're doing it in a dynamic way that you can adjust this if needed. And you can add more content to it. And that content group, for example, can grow. So you can return to the same content group later and generate more content if you've been feeding more stuff into it, and you can take the next progression for that campaign. There's ways to work that all together. So right now, he suggested that the primary goal for the next 7 days is to secure 8 paid deposits. He's really talking about the conversations Nick and I were having about marketing the business in Tana course to start off with, because that's all the data that we've fed into it. We've fed him pricing strategy conversations, communications, marketing information, even the setups to how we've built the infrastructures in the background for payments. So I'm expecting him to pull in almost everything from the conversations in that. Let's set a goal as the 8 paid deposits. So what I can effectively do here is just go goal, and we can bring him into there. But he's asked me a question, so I feel like I'm going to turn around and say, yes, that sounds fine. Whilst the AI is doing that, I'm going to go into one that we've done before so you can see what this kind of looks like on a more filled out basis. So this is everything that we did from the original conversations. And the direction is multiple goals, multiple angles that we picked out from the conversation in the chat. and hooks that we've also established with Hagrid. These are all things that took us maybe 10 minutes to curate over a conversation, but with ChatGPT with ChatGPT 5 being that little bit slower than I'd like it to be for a demonstration purpose, I'm just going to show you through this as well whilst we wait for the chat to come back. All the source material is literally based off every conversation and all the highlights that we've pulled out of GigaBrain over the last few weeks. All these reflections are all those notes that we've had together. The materials is what we've then created from those points. So if I go back a moment, actually, because there's one that is probably a little bit of a better explanation. This one. Okay. So we created this article. We created a post, a newsletter, and a video, all based off the same hook information and content. So what that effectively looks like from a certain standpoint, and you can always return back to the conversation in the chat to pick up where you left off. So you go all the way down to the conversation points.
I want to jump in real quick and pump the brakes just a little bit. So this is really going into the details of the HAG model that we developed. And HAG stands for hooks, angles, and goals. You start though with the goals. You define what your goals you want to accomplish for your business and how you want the material, the content that you're going to create, how that is going to impact and positively contribute towards those goals. So that's how you're bringing in inspiration and seeds from your work, but also you're feeding into the work by providing your content goals that are related to your work. And that's where it really starts, at the strategic level for your content. Next, you define angles, and you can define as many of these as you want of each of the goals, angles, and hooks. But when you get to the point that you are creating individual pieces of content, and by the way, this is a content group here that Simon is working at on the left side. It's a content group because it's designed so that you can create an entire group of pieces of content that all are speaking towards the same relative goals and angles. They may have, unique hooks, especially, particularly if you're using different types of media. But that's kind of the general process. And the recommendation is for any individual piece of content, especially, to have only one angle that you're working on. Maybe one or two business goals, depending on how complex the content is. And then similarly with the hooks, probably just one, maybe two. It depends on the content. But while you're determining which you would prefer, you can pull out several during this content strategy stage where you're defining all of these things, and then you dive into building content from there. And so when you're doing that, like I said, the inspiration is coming from your work, but also the angles and the hooks and the goals, everything is interwoven with your work and your business goals in that way. And this ensures that, and you're doing all of that as part of a conversation with AI, so that the AI is helping you move faster and find better results. Yes, but it's really just streamlining the process and keeping you in the loop, and also making sure that everything is tied together crisply. And I noticed that when Simon and I were doing this, I had much more stamina for working on these things, because we ended up working on the content, the strategy, and the execution just as long as we would have otherwise. But I think we got much better results. And when we were done, I wasn't tired. I would normally be exhausted after that much effort.
So that was one of the main things as well that I noticed, was that it was actually fun to engage with it, because I was getting results that were back in my own words, back in my own thoughts, and relevant. So it didn't feel like I was getting back this massive long essay that was overwhelming and cognitive load, and just felt like it was work to go through. It felt like I was having a conversation. So now from this point, we've set up.
I want to answer Carol's question real quick.
Oh, go on.
Sorry. So she's asking what happens if you have more than one business, and I'll give the answer that is always the best answer, and I will say it depends. So if they're like very interrelated, you might be fine just having it all in one encompassing thing, because you can keep relatively the same focus, but you just you diverge here and there for things. If they're wildly different and you want to make sure that you have like pristine focus on each separate thing, then you might want to have them in different workspaces, or using different variations of the templates. Alternatively, you could try to thread the needle, and in the variations of about me and other types of guidance, you can try to provide that guidance to the AI that would help it determine when it's more appropriate to do things this way for this type of content or that business versus the other kind. Does that answer your question, Carol?
There's also potentially an oversimplified answer for this as well, which you could probably go into more detail for. But like an oversimplified answer would be, you could have just different companies that are assigned to, basically you're treating the workspace as yours, and you've just got different companies that you pay extra focus or attention to, and you assign them different views and you manage it from a different level, versus just having a company as this. Or it depends on how you're operating in that sense. But there's simple ways to do it, and you could get really complex, and you can go even further than what Nick's just said as well, I'm assuming. But you could even do things where you could replicate this entire workflow and just have it specifically for this one company. But there's also simple things where you could be like, a project super tag could be for this company, and this project super tag could be for this company only. And then you've broken it very simply down by just having a different super tag for each one. It just depends on how you're operating. But yeah, that was all.
Yeah, I'll
Being one
say
workspace.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'll say, like for myself as an example, I have like myself as an entity. I have strategic design as my business. I also have kind of like personal or hobby stuff as well, and those could be like very different things. Especially the business, maybe you might think should be completely separate from everything else, but there's a lot of things that flow in between those, and so I find a lot of value actually in having that, in not having like that blood barrier, in letting things flow across between those different aspects of my life. But if you need to have like a clear separation between things, then you would probably want to have separate workspaces with setups for each of those businesses, like especially if they need for privacy or security sake.
So going back to hooks, angles, and goals. Okay. So from this point, we've had this conversation with the AI, we've distilled down the information from the sources, we've gotten to the narrowed down of like the goal, the angle, and the hook of what we want to achieve. And now we're at the stage where we're creating content. So simply hop in here, and I always turn around, from what I understand, create long form content first, and then everything else can stem from that, because then you've got all the words from there that you can then distill out from. So we're going to create an article and go straight into it, and everything's all set up for us. All we have to do is have a straight up conversation with Kerry, who's our writing assistant, and she's going to look through the source material, the goal, the angle, and the hook that we've distilled down in the content group, and she's going to help us to formulate the actual final results for what's going on here. And this is where we got to with Kerry before, and this was the introduction for the project, or for the cohort that we were working through. And I can show you what the results are going to look like in the chat in a moment, but just as a kind of quick introduction, straight away, she's picked up on several things that Nick and I had been speaking about numerous times throughout the week. And it's mainly all in this little section here. We're collecting gold and leaving it in the vault. Notes, transcripts, meetings, highlights, looms, links, all saved in Tana, then ignored when it's time to publish. So you open a blank page and you try to reinvent yourself again. No wonder everything still takes 3 to 6 hours, 3 to 6 hours and sounds like everybody else. How do you stay unique in a world where everyone has access to the same tools? So this is the angle that we're kind of looking at, which is how do you utilize AI like everybody else is doing, but still sound like you, still maintain the essence of you? And this is what we've kind of geared with the whole infrastructure on the back end. It's not just the infrastructure that you see with Focus Pro, it's the infrastructure that's delivered by GigaBrain in conjunction with that, that gives you results like this, which are very accurate and more fun to work with. I feel like I've got a sparring partner versus something that's just going to shoot back a bunch of information to me, and then I've got to try and work out if it's usable or not. So with all of that, going back to what I was talking about, Kerry's then kind of set up in a way that sorry, I'm jumping around. Kerry's set up in a way where she can do this for videos, she can do this for articles, she can do this for X posts and things like that. The article that we've done there, we're going to publish it either tomorrow or Monday. And we're also going to be releasing several posts and stuff throughout the week that are effectively going to kind of support our theory of what we're doing here as well. Everything that we've done has been kind of like feeding into it. So we're kind of using the same materials. And the idea is to really showcase what it can do for you. We created like a couple of tweets and a couple of posts within like a couple of minutes earlier, because it was very easy to just go through, chat with Hagrid, pick out the goals, tell him that this is where we were at before, what's the next steps. And then he came back with a couple of options and it was like, cool, great, that one will do. I just need to I just need to finesse. I don't need to have that horrible cold start problem that everyone sits and looks at a blank page and goes, what do I do? When we were turning around and saying, oh God.
Yeah, sorry, I can't help myself because I really want to jump in and like express how different this is from what I think the typical solution that is provided to people is. And it's typically like it spits out something and it meets a certain minimum threshold and that's it. Like it's created content and that's basically it. This is ensuring that it's connected to what you're doing and that you have every opportunity to hone it in your style and your voice rather than just relying on the exact same process resulting in the exact same results that everyone else is getting. That's one of the big goals for us in developing this content process, was to have a systematized way so that you can ensure that that happens without you having to cognitively be thinking about it and checking yourself every step of the way. This is helping you get checked every step of the way.
The nice thing is that because you are formulating everything here and then having the conversation, you've only really got like a two-way system that's going on. You can also edit everything you need to edit in the chat and make everything relevant on the page that needs to be relevant. These items here, they're not just a signal. They're like, you're working in that space, but it's not a task, it's a material. So the whole thing with this as well is that your final element won't be here. It's going to be on Twitter or it's going to be on your website. So there's going to be elements that take you from here to those places. And I'll show you that in just a moment. But for the moment and time being, I'm kind of fast tracking through this. So I don't know if it's written anything particularly great, but let's go for the, sorry, I'm just going through all the way. Okay. The cold open, if your prompts feel hit or miss, the problem isn't the LLM, it's the context you feed it. So it's taken what I've been talking about and put it into a nice format. It really kind of showed out more. Don't know what I'm saying, sorry. It really showed a lot of promise when it was kind of feeding back the same conversations to us and using my words. It was very impressive that it could do that, and the way it formulated everything from that point onwards was kind of just propelled us into the next step. The intention was to keep you moving and to have no dead blocks. So every time we kind of found, oh well, this was what this was solving. We didn't have any of that. We just flowed through the entire scenario. The interesting thing is that I'm going to go to mine just for a second. What I'll do is I'll show you that you can also, from one of these videos, you can have a little bit of access to loads of different things as well. So one of the things that we did do was this performance API. So effectively what can happen is it's just a simple little thing from the moment, but I can get my YouTube analytics and find out how many views something's had based on a certain time frame. But what's more impressive is the ability to actually go and get some next step analytics. So in this instance, did it do it? Please tell me it did it.
The demo bug strikes again.
Yeah.
So what missing
Give me 2
the
seconds.
field?
Give me 1 second.
Yeah, while he's doing that, so what it does is it looks at various types of information about, in this case, your YouTube channel, and it pulls in whatever it can, and it digests it, and it comes up with recommendations based on that data for, I think he has it set to a 30-day window. And then it looks at like spikes of engagement and everything else and comes up with recommendations for next steps that you can do to improve your performance.
So 2 clear attention spikes, drove outside, watched, and pulled those 2 videos together to replicate the format, thumbnails, August 23 shows. So when you kind of went through this, and when we went through this with Kerry into the conversations, it actually took these metrics and these summaries into account because we are calling that information out within the prompt as well. So this is where that dynamic element comes together, is that these super tags can be used in a way that you effectively just go through as a checklist. Yep, needs this, 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 and this. And then you can punt it back out there, and everything kind of comes back in a fashion where you are familiar with, because it's using your context. The next thing to show is really how this all gets built out. So the intention for this as well was to give you the ability to build out whatever you wanted to build out really quickly, really easily, utilizing a framework which fits into the rest of your system. So this is where the feature factory comes into place. I don't know if Nick doesn't want to jump in or anything or say anything, but the feature factory is magic. Basically,
I'll just say, watch on the right side, the right panel, underneath where it says #course. You'll see things start populating.
the idea is this is a course type that we've set up. It's going to be intentionally to build out the processes for the business cohort that we've got going on next week. So the intention would be is that we build all this out, and then we can effectively share it with all the potentially with the Tana Publish 2.0, we might be able to share it as a project so people can see all the populations. But we go through certain checklists on the tags. So in this instance, I want to save this tag to a vault system. So in order to do that, I'm going to click it on, and it's going to add a vault field. So really easy. We come down here as well, and we can see that there's no vault assigned. So I'm going to put him into a focus. Okay. So that's one little bit of setup. I can also choose to have this as a dynamic, or I can have it as an archive. Dynamic just means, from those who are familiar with my current template, it means it will move around the system based on the status format. But we want to just archive this and put it there forever so we can call it back. This is going to be an origin, so it's going to be used to reference and create things within it. So we want other items to connect to it. So we're going to add that. And this is part of the linking architecture that Nick and I have built out. The idea is so that you know where things are, what it's like being directed to, and where you can find it within the system. Then we come into things like the AI assistants. So for the course, I don't want the course to be a source for anything or a highlight. So Casper will leave alone, but I want to be able to review it and find patterns and things like that later. So I don't want to add them individually because I could, and then we can see that the command groups get all added one by one, or I can add an entire group and we've got them both here. Continuing further down, we've got things like Hagrid, but he's part of another process, and we've got Kerry, who's also part of another process. And then we can go to the full status, and we've got status options. So these little click-ons bring you everything that you need for those commands to work within the system. So it will provide you with all the fields and all the command structure. And then if you want to...
I just realized we didn't point out, scroll all the way up to the top. Yeah, the reason why this is affecting that course tag is because that's what's been selected and placed inside that field at the very top. So you can do this with any tag. Any tag that's in your system that you want to be able to adjust the way that it functions, the way that it appears, the types of data or agents that are attached to it. You can do all of that in just quickly, selecting half a dozen boxes and you're done.
And all of these things come like pre-built. So the idea is that you can also create your own. So you just very simply create a function, it pops something down here, and then you'll see here, if I go into course, you'll see the tags populate on the right. If I add this, it adds a new function. I can change the name, and everything will get sorted, and it gets removed and added. So this is the way that you build out systems and build out tags. The next bit is things like I want the ability to assign a team member, and I want the ability to log communication activity, and effectively you've set up a course tag. But this is where you can now add the power of a view to it. And I've already preset the course with the focus view. Have I? No, okay, I haven't. So we'll put him in there now as well. So we'll go into here and we'll go schema, views. I thought I did put him in there. He is in there. Okay. So now what we're going to do from this point is I'm going to basically build out the viewpoint. So we've got the tab menu that gets added. So you can watch all the commands appear up top. And we can click that and that all goes away. Add the smart pad, add the snips, calendar, actions, events, materials, highlights, all of these different things that we've got all set up. We can even add team notes and we can add related content groups. So everything gets all associated and added to it. You can just disconnect them.
And there's things that are set up within things that are set up, so that like the materials, the events, the highlights, the capture, all of those things are connected to however you set up your system, so that now, if he turned all of those things on. So now any actions that are associated with that course will automatically show up there. Any materials will show up in that tab, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a really super powered personal builder tool that you can really build out your own experiences to a large degree without even needing to create your own functions like Simon was showing. If you do want to do that though, even that is much easier than if you were just doing it on your own.
I've shown this functionality so many times before with my own system, but I love the ability to delete everything out of it, maintain all the connections, and then just click it back on and go, oh yeah, it's all here. You can just completely change your system just with simple clicks, and it still maintains all its connections because of the way Tana utilizes the graph. And the purpose of doing it this way is twofold. It's one, to really encapsulate that you're seeing what you're doing, in a controlled space. This is where I go to do this. And these are the things that I need to attach to it in order to be able to do that. So this feature factory really is the next step evolution of those micro apps and functions and queries that Nick and I were producing originally with all the settings. There's so much more that you can do with this as well. It's just the start of, this is the way you would build things out. And it is literally a case of create a new function. I want to add a new function to this guy, and we can go meetings and meeting tags, links to parent, click that on, add it to the function, and we've got those there, and then meetings will show up. So it gives you quick access to going, right, this is a general thing. I can now move it across in so many different ways.